Hey there, it's Graciela here. In today's video, we'll be learning how to convert Excel files into CSV format using Power Automate and Office scripts. We're going to be working with this file. You can see that it's a flat range inside the Excel file. We don't know how many rows we're going to get in the file, and we always get the same 5 columns. And the only thing that we want to do is to take the content of this file and just turn it into a CSV. So for that, we are going to be using a combination of an Office script with Power Automate to achieve this automation. So what we're going to do is we are going to upload this Excel file to SharePoint without making any change. Then we're going to get this file and we are going to convert this flat range into a table. N number of rows, we don't know how many rows we're going to get, but we know it's always going to have these 5 columns. And then we're going to use Office scripts to convert this range into an actual table. And then we're going to use some Excel and Power Automate actions to get these rows and finally convert these rows into a CSV. And we're just going to save it in the same folder where the file was initially uploaded. So let's get started by creating our Office script. I'm going to upload a sample of my file here into Power Automate. And then once it's there, I'm just going to open it. And once we open this file online, we're going to see this Automate tab. This Automate tab is what we can use to create Office scripts. Office scripts are pretty much macros that can run online. It doesn't have all the same capabilities of a macro, but it has quite a few similarities. We can automate repetitive tasks in our files on the web. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the range that is used in the workbook and then convert that into a table that is always going to have the same name. So this is, as I said, it's really similar to how macros work. So it also has a recorder. So we can just go to the Automate tab and then just go straight to the Records action section. Okay, so it now started recording. And what we are going to do, we are going to click on range A1. Then we're going to do Control A in our keyboard so it recognizes all the range we're working on. And finally, we're going to click on Insert Table. We're going to check that our table has headers. And then we're going to edit our script. And you can see here that it added some code for us. And unfortunately, here is hard coding the range that it will recognize the table. And as we said previously, these files can have a number of rows, so we don't know how many we're going to get. So you can see that in this file, we have 800 rows, almost 900. And on this one, we have over that number of rows. So we need to find a way to make this dynamic. And the Office scripts have a specific code that we can use for that, which is by getting the surrounding region of a cell. So in this case, you can see here that we can use this option that is called Get Used Range, or we can also use this one that is called Get Surrounding Region. So in this case, we're gonna use the Get Used Range. Let's put this in. So we are going to copy this code and just paste it into our Office script. So instead, we're just going to add a new row. And here you can see that the code that we found, it's using this variable name that is called current worksheet, but we're going to use it as selected sheet to use the same. And now we no longer have an error. So let's replace this selected range by just the used range. So here, let's turn back our range into a flat range and then let's hit on run. And we'll see if it works. It seems to be working properly. And the only thing we're missing is to define a name for our table because we need to make sure that it's always called the same name. So I forgot to record that, but we can also search in Google how to table. So we can see here, this is the way that we can do it. So let's copy this code and paste it in here. And then here we just need to use the same variable name that the Office script gave to our table, which is in this case new table. We just put it there, and we're just gonna put the table name here, which is going to be data table. So now let's save our script and let's rename it to convert range into table. So now it's saving and it's here. Now, when we work with Office scripts, these are saved into our OneDrive. And what we can do is to move them out of OneDrive and put them into. And for that, I'm going to go to my OneDrive. Then there's always going to be a folder called Documents. And under that, there's going to be one that is called Office Scripts. So if I click on it, you're going to see I have two scripts. This is the one that we just renamed. So I am going to download this and I will put it here in my documents. I'm going to add a folder that is called Office Scripts and I will upload it here, and that way I can run the script from SharePoint and not from OneDrive. This is useful, for example, if we're using our personal accounts. It's not really a good idea to link an automation with an account that is linked to a person. It's better if it's in a location that other users can locate the code in case it's needed. So now we have our script here. Just for the sake of testing, we're going to upload another of these files to make sure that the code works in more than one file. So let's upload one of these. It's it's this one. And now we can run our code to make sure it works. So we go to the Automate tab, and then here we have our script, and we just click on Run. And we can see it correctly recognized the range we're working on, and then it recognized the last row, and the table name is also called Data Table. Now let's go to Power Automate, and here we are going to create a new flow, and it's going to be an automated cloud flow. In this case, what we are going to be doing is just recognizing whenever there are new files into this SharePoint folder, but the trigger could be anything, and then we can just save the file into SharePoint and just read it from there. Okay, so in this case, we're going to look for SharePoint triggers, and we are going to use this one when a file is created. And then let's hit on Create, and we are just going to select which is the site that we want to work on. Let's copy the site address. Well, it's here now. Now we are going to read what's the library, this one, and we are also going to limit this flow to specific files that are uploaded into our XLSX to CSV folder. That way, this is the only folder that will trigger this automation. So, okay, now we have the trigger. We have identified this folder, and whenever there is something new, we're gonna run this flow. I'm going to delete these files for now because we are going to upload them again. And now let's create a new action. And what we are going to do is we are going to run the script on top of the file that is uploaded. So let's look for the run script action. And here we have two. We have one that is called run script and one that is called run script from SharePoint library. Run script will try to run any script that is saved under your OneDrive folder. In this case, we moved it from OneDrive to SharePoint, so we are going to use this one. Usually, run script is for automations that are just for your own, and if you're going to keep the Office script just in your OneDrive. But if it's going to be like a shared automation or a key automation or an automation that is running on a user, on a service account or a generic automations account, it's usually recommended to always do it from SharePoint, because that way the code is going to be shared between anyone that needs to have access to it. So now let's sign in. And the first thing that is going to ask us is where is the workbook. In this case, it's going to be in this SharePoint folder, in this SharePoint site. And then it's going to ask us what's the library. In this case, it's going to be documents. And then it's going to ask us what's the workbook. In this case, remember that this is going to be a dynamic file. So whenever we upload something, we need to run the script on that file so we don't know in advance which one that is. So for that, what we need to do is we need to click on this dynamic content icon for us to be able to select the item ID. So let's look for ID. And we are going to use the identifier. And that way we are going to be running this action on top of dynamic files that are uploaded into the SharePoint folder. And then it will ask us what's the location of the script. And let's select it's in documents, and then let's select our script. We have it here, and then let's select the code. So now that we have this, we can quickly test to make sure that this part is complete and correct. And let's test this by uploading a file into our folder. Okay, now it's running, and I uploaded another one as well to make sure everything is working okay. So it has succeeded, and for example, if we open this file, it should now have a table, and it actually does. It has 700 rows, and the table has been renamed. Now that we have this, we can go back to our Power Automate workflow, and we are going to read these rows from Power Automate. And for that, we are going to add a new Excel action. And we are going to use this action that is called list rows present in a table. And we are going to always select our SharePoint site, then our library, which is also documents. And then on the file here, this is going to be dynamic, just like it was for the Office script. However, just for now, we are going to select a file so we can have Power Automate recognize the initial structure of our files. And then we're going to switch this to be dynamic. So we select here the file just for now. We're going to come back later to this. And then I am just going to select which table I will want to work with. And you can see that it correctly recognizes that I have this data table in my file. And then one important thing is that we have a couple of hundred rows in our file. And this Excel action only recognizes around 200 or 300 rows. So we need to change it to be able to recognize more rows than the ones that it comes by default. So for that, we go to settings, we enable pagination, and then we're gonna set up to a limit of 1500 rows because we know that it will not be more than 1000 rows for each of the files that we're working with. And that way it will bring all the rows that we have in our file instead of bringing just 200 or 300. Okay, so now we have set this up, and now we are going to take this information that comes from Excel and convert it into a CSV file. For that, there is this set of actions under the data operation connector that we can use to automatically convert a result from an action into a CSV. It's this action that is called Create CSV table. And here we're going to indicate from the dynamic content that we are going to use the result from the Excel step, which is the body value from the list rows present in a table. We're going to say that we want this to come automatically from the result of that action. And then whenever we read information from Excel tables in Power Automate, it adds a new column into the result. So we don't want that in the end result. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this parameter called columns, and we're going to change this from automatic to custom. And then we are going to just select which columns we are interested in, which are the same that we have in the file. In case you need to rename something, This can be an option as well to rename, because we really don't need to write the same column name here. We can write, for example, instead of quantity in Spanish, we can write it in English, and so on. So we can always rename just in case we need to rename something. So now we can even change all of this to English so we can see how changes everything here. But if you need to leave the very same column name, it can also be left there. If, for example, your CSV doesn't need to have the ID column, you can just not include it here, and that will be all right. For example, here, if I remove and we leave all these four, only these four will be included. So here we can make changes to the end result on how the CSV is going to be created. And finally, we just need to create this file into the same folder in which the file was uploaded. So in this case, we are going to use the create file action, and we're going to select the SharePoint address, and we're gonna indicate where we want this to save. In this case, shared documents, XLSX to CSV, and then the name of the file. What I'm gonna do, I will just take the file name that comes from the trigger, which is the file that it was saved with, and I'm just gonna add an underscore and then .csv. And finally, the file content is just going to be the result from the CSV table. And this is pretty much almost everything that we need. The only thing that we need to come here to change is this list rows present in a table. If you remember, we had it like hard-coded here to one specific file that we uploaded for testing. But now we can actually change this to be dynamic and to just run for whatever file the flow is running for. So let's just click on the dynamic content icon, and then let's just search for the identifier attribute that comes as well from the trigger, just like we did when we were running the script. There's something that I will add here, and I will add a delay between running the script and reading the rows. I am doing this just because I think that the Excel connector is a little bit slow. It doesn't always immediately recognizes the changes that happen online. So in this case, we're gonna run the script. We're gonna give it a minute for it to wait to see the new table, and then we are going to just list the rows that the script added and then continue with the flow. So let's save. And finally, let's go to all runs, and let's just execute one of these. We're going to resubmit it. And it started running. It should... No, actually, we can't resubmit because these two already have the table created. So we cannot resubmit on this. So let's just upload new files here. We're just going to upload these two. And let's wait for the trigger to be recognized by Power Automate. And something as well that we can do is we can add to this delay something here in the settings to have it run even if the Office script fails, because maybe if it fails, it's because the table already exists, so it can continue running. So that would be an option for us to be able to resubmit existing rows, existing flows, or existing executions. That could be an option, or if not, we can just add something here to the right to let the user know that there was one or two files that couldn't be processed. So let's just give it a minute or two until our trigger recognizes the new files. And it's running now. For now, it's waiting for the delay that we added. And if I go here, these files already have the table because the script already ran on them. So we just need to wait for the delay to finish. And okay, it seems like there's an error here because it's not able to recognize the table name. Let's go back to our flow and let's see this. And actually, yes, there was a mistake here. I forgot to remove this because whenever we are working with Excel files and we select a table, each table gets like its own ID. So this ID is no longer the same ID that we were working on. So we're going to remove this, and we need to open the selector and then click here on enter custom value, and we can just write data table, which is the name that we know our table will have. Now that we added the action for us to be able to resubmit workflows, we can just do it. So even if the script fails because we already have a table that is called data table, it's still going to keep running. So in the meantime, I'm also going to add another file so we can see that it actually works on new files as well. So let's give it a minute until it finishes waiting for the delay that we added. And we can see that it has the one that we resubmitted has finished, and the other one we uploaded is now running. If we open the one that was that we resubmitted, we can see that the script failed, but it continued because the table already existed. And when we list the rows present in a table, we see that we have all the rows that initially we had in the file. If we look for this column, you can see that we have 987 rows. And apart from that, we see that we have all the columns that we had in the file, but we can also see that Power Automate added these two. And these two lines are the reason why we mapped these columns here. So we don't get those two additional in the CSV. So now if I go ahead and open the CSV file that was created, it seems like there is like a break, a line break in the headers. We're gonna check that in our flow. And I think that happened because I copied and pasted the column names from the Excel file, so an invisible line break was copied over. So for that, we can see that here in the code view, there is here a line break that shouldn't be there at all. And to fix that, I'm going to switch from the new to the old designer, because I think the old designer is a little bit better at recognizing these hidden characters or hidden break lines. So I'm going to switch, and we're going to fix it there and just rerun it. So yeah, you can see here in the old designer, I see the additional row or the additional line break that was added that I didn't see in the new designer. So I'm just going to remove it. And if we have a look at the code, if we pick code, you see that it's no longer there. So I'm going to save, and we see the files are already running, and let's wait another minute for all the automations to finish. Okay, all the automations have finished. If we go to our folder and we refresh this page, we're gonna see we have these CSV files. If we open them or if we download them, we should now see the right format. We see that it has the right header now, and that we have all the columns in the right format. If I open the file, it's as well here correctly set up, also in the desktop and in the web. And this is how we use a combination of Office scripts and Power Automate actions to convert a file from Excel format to CSV. I hope that this was useful for you. See you next time.